Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. My name is Matt Fee. I'm the chair of the Rutherford County Democratic Party, if you didn't know that already. But I really appreciate everyone coming here today. This is actually not the first time we've gotten a chance to do a primary forum for two Democrats running for the same office here in Rutherford County this year. Back in April, we had a primary forum for the two candidates that were running for County Commission District 21. And now here we are today. We have two candidates running for State House District 37, Marlayna Trego and Marianne Young. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. I really do truly feel honored that, we've had so many people willing to stand up and run for office this year that we've actually had primaries to vote for here in Rutherford County. That's a new thing for all of us, including myself. And I'm just so happy that both of you are here today, and we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you very much.
Me?
All right, so this is set up. We're going to start out with opening statements from both candidates, and then we'll do some questions and answers that I've prepared for them and given to them. So there will be roughly about an hour, and then we'll have like 30 minutes for questions and answers from the audience, if we have that many, and then closing comments. And that's going to be the order of things today. So we'll start out with Marlayna. We'll start out first with the opening statement.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marlayna Trego, and I'm running for Tennessee State House District 37, as you all know. I want to start by saying something you don't always hear at political forums. I'm proud to be sharing the stage tonight with Marianne, and because we both love this community and we want what's best for it. We both want District 37 to have real representation in Nashville. Whatever happens in August truly matters, so thank you for being here with us tonight. I'm here because I believe my story is this district's story. I have a CDL. I drove semi-trucks for a living. I've also worked in banking. I've worked behind the chair with a cosmetology license, and I have even worked in a warehouse while I was pregnant. I've been the person doing the math at the end of the month, hoping that it works out. I'm running because District 37 deserves someone in that seat who has actually lived what they're living, not just someone who cares about it, but someone who has actually been in it. My campaign is built on three things: making sure all who call District 37 home can afford to stay here, restoring real access to healthcare, and protecting what belongs to us: our communities, our schools, our local decisions. District 37 deserves a fighter, and I am ready to be that. Thank you.
So good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Marianne Young, and I've called Rutherford County home for nearly 30 years. I've raised 3 sons here. My husband and I built our life here. Last year, I found myself doing something I never expected: organizing with my neighbors to fight a warehouse development that was about to get dropped into our community. We almost had no say from the people who actually were going to have to live next to it. We fought at the Rutherford County Commission, and we fought again at Town of Smyrna. We organized, we showed up, and we won. That fight changed something in me. It showed me what's possible when a community refuses to be an afterthought. It showed me how often the decisions that shape our daily lives get made without us in the room. That's what led me to begin learning how to fight legislators and lobbyists. And now they're trying to expand Middle Point landfill and repeal the Jackson Law to do it. That's what will keep me showing up for our district, and that's what brought me here tonight. It's actually a theme that's run throughout my career. Years ago, I was part of the very first group of women at my company to join an employee resource group. We named the group Women at the Table. It was built on the simple idea that if you're not in the room, decisions get made without you. I've carried that with me ever since, in conference rooms, in my neighborhood, and here tonight. Prior to a corporate layoff at the end of the year, I worked in fintech. I led teams, I collaborated with others, and then solved real problems for hundreds of thousands of customers at a time. I didn't get there by being the loudest person in the room. I got there by listening, building coalitions, and getting results when the people across the table didn't agree with me at first. That's the kind of leadership I want to bring to the Tennessee House of Representatives. Not slogans, not noise, results. Results for child care, results for health care, results for schools, results for the families that live in this district. They deserve a state government that actually shows up for them and listens. Tonight, you're going to hear from both of us, and we both care deeply about the community. I'd just like to ask you to listen to who's ready to do the work from now to November and on day one in the Tennessee House of Representatives. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll go back and forth on the questions. Who goes first? We'll start with Marlayna with this one, and then we'll just go back and forth. So we have a couple of different categories here. First up is going to be cost of living. So Marlayna, you'll each have 2 minutes to answer the question. Grocery and everyday costs have gone up for everyone regardless of party. What role, if any, should the state play in helping families afford the basics?
The state has some real tools here, and right now we're not using them at all. Tennessee is one of the few states that still taxes groceries at the full rate. Cutting or eliminating the grocery tax is a direct, immediate relief that does not require federal action, so it's something we can do ourselves. We can also support local food co-ops, farmers markets, and SNAP access programs that keep dollars actually in the community. No family in Murfreesboro should have to choose between groceries and rent, and that's not a hypothetical. That is an average Tuesday for a lot of people here. The state can't fix everything, but we can stop actively making it worse. Taxing groceries while cutting corporate tax breaks is a choice, and I would choose differently.
Yeah, so I hear this everywhere I go, at the grocery store, my neighbors, people who've lived here well before I ever came around. The state's priorities don't match our needs. They don't. Just like Marlayna said, the state grocery tax. Did you know that we have a bill in the legislature right now that's been stalled to eliminate our 4% grocery tax? We can also reduce our fuel tax. Also local, our commissioners, our city municipalities can also repeal their 0.5% grocery tax and the summer fuel tax without even having to go to the state to help the burden. Also, we keep giving big corporations tax breaks. That is really causing a big burden on the community. And I think we need real oversight over the corporations that are coming to Rutherford County. We need stronger assistance for families who are 1 month away from bad trouble. My whole campaign is built on the idea that leadership should produce real results.
Okay, very good. So next question, Mary, you'll go first on this one. Childcare costs as much as rent for a lot of young families here. What would you do to make childcare more affordable or accessible in District 37?
So this district is really growing fast. Mount Juliet, Smyrna, Laverne, Murfreesboro are adding families every day, but the childcare capacity is not kept up. The cost is outpacing, just like you said, families, and parents pay more for childcare than they're paying for mortgage and rent. It's not sustainable, and it's pushing people, especially moms, out of the workforce. Our current state legislators say they value families, but have done little to ensure families have the means to take care of their children. I think making childcare affordable will take a commitment from the state as well as business communities. Childcare is an investment in our workforce, and I think this is where we change up and can use the voucher program. It would shift those funds from private schools to childcare, allowing more families to qualify for the state childcare subsidy. Also providing tax incentives for employers who help cover childcare costs to have childcare on site. Did you also know that employers have a program, the federal government does, it's called Dependent Sales Tax, FSA, spending account, Dependent Spending Account, and that your HR group can help you get pre-tax dollars for that. Growth that doesn't include childcare infrastructure isn't responsible growth.
So childcare is infrastructure, and yet we treat it like a luxury. And that's why so many parents are drowning. I myself was pushed out of the workforce because I could not afford childcare. So I would push for state-funded childcare subsidies that actually scale with income, not programs that only help the very poorest of poor and leave working-class families out. I would support workforce pipeline investment. Childcare workers are some of the lowest paid people in our country. You can't fix the access problem if you cannot fix the pay problem. I have a young child myself, so I know what this math looks like directly, and we need to stop asking parents to solve a policy issue on their own.
Very good. So next question, Marlayna, you'll go first on this one. Tennessee has no state minimum wage above the federal floor. Do you support raising it? And if not, what's your alternative for helping low-wage workers keep up?
Yes, it's been 17 years, y'all. The federal minimum wage has not been raised in Tennessee the federal minimum wage hasn't been raised since 2009, and that's not a floor, it's a trapdoor. Tennessee choosing not to act above it is a policy decision, not a default. Small and medium businesses, which are the backbone of District 37, actually benefit from workers having more spending power. The argument against raising the minimum wage always assumes the current situation is fine. It's not fine. People are working 2 jobs and still cannot make rent. Some are even working 3 and can't make rent. The research on moderate minimum wage increases doesn't support that raising the minimum wage kills jobs. It actually supports the opposite. What kills small businesses is workers who can't afford to shop locally. Thank you.
So I do support raising the minimum wage. So Tennessee does not have a state minimum wage above the federal floor of $7.25. And like Marlayna said, it hasn't moved in over 15 years. It doesn't come close to covering rent, childcare, groceries, gas. But again, it's not I don't want to frame it as a worker versus business. Full-time work should mean you can actually afford to live in the community where you work. If someone's clocking 40 hours a week, they shouldn't be 1 car repair away from a crisis. My husband and I, we own a small business. There's no way that we could keep and hold on to our our valuable employees if we paid $7.25 an hour. There's just no way we could have that continuity and keep our employees.
Very good. All right. Moving to the next topic is going to be health and education. Mary, you'll go first on this question. Tennessee has one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the country, and rural hospitals keep closing or cutting services. What would you do to protect access to maternal and emergency health care?
So this keeps me up at night, honestly. Tennessee ranked number 1 in the national maternal mortality between 2018 and 2022. We had double the national average. We are lucky in Rutherford County that we have so many hospitals here and more being built. However, that's not the same across the state. We keep watching the hospitals close the labor and delivery units or shutting down altogether. I support full Medicaid expansion through TennCare because the single biggest thing we can do to stabilize struggling rural hospitals financially is by expanding Medicaid. Beyond that, I believe we need to do direct state funding to keep labor and delivery units open and incentives to get more OBGYNs and family medicine doctors in rural areas. Access to care shouldn't depend on your zip code. The party that runs this state wants you to have more children, but they don't want you to have care while you're pregnant or after the baby is born. Make it make sense.
So Tennessee's maternal mortality rate is a crisis, and the legislature has had years to act, and they have not. Expanding Medicaid would be the single highest impact move. It directly funds rural hospitals and extends prenatal and postnatal coverage to women who currently fall through the gap. Telehealth access for prenatal care is in underserved areas is a lower barrier intervention that we could push for right now. Women in this district are dying at rates we should not accept in 2026, and I would not be a vote that protects the status quo on this. Tennessee, as Marianne said, is the worst in the country for maternal mortality. 42.1 deaths per 100,000 live births. That's how many mothers we lose. We lose double the rate of the national average. And Black mothers in Tennessee are dying at nearly 3 times the rate of non-Hispanic white mothers. And this is not a coincidence. It is the result of policy choice.
Next question, Marlayna, you'll go first on this one. Teachers and parents say student mental health needs have outpaced what schools can handle. What would you do to expand mental health resources in schools?
We're asking our teachers to be therapists, and that is not fair to our teachers or to our kids. I would push for dedicated state funding for school-based mental health counselors, not just unfunded mandates that put the burden on already stretched districts like ours. Rutherford County schools have seen enrollment growth, and we will continue to see that. We are expected to be at 400,000 people coming here by the end of this year, and that brings more students. The student to counselor ratio here is already well above what a national standard recommends. And mental health is not a luxury elective. It is what determines whether a kid can learn anything else. It is what determines whether a kid can thrive and be successful in life. Thank you.
So a recent report released said Tennessee children experienced a sharp decline in well-being. The 2026 Kids Count Data Book found children were far worse off since 2019, not only in Tennessee, but in 29 other states. However, Tennessee was at the bottom in almost every single category: economic, health, family, and community. Did you know that 1 in 5 residents in Tennessee is under 18? I'm a mental health advocate, and every child should be able to get the mental health support they need to thrive. The need has outpaced what schools can handle, and counselors and social workers are stretched far too thin. I'd push for state funding that's tied to mental health staffing ratios, not just testing outcomes, so districts have the resources to hire the people kids need. I'd also support telehealth partnerships so growing districts that cannot recruit enough in-person providers get the kids connected to care. We also should allow youth to access mental health services without a formal diagnosis. Our kids are still trying to overcome the pandemic with these last few years, and schools should not be left to handle that alone with no backup. I do want to say this though: every person, no matter their age or background, should have access to affordable mental health services. There's far too many of us that deal with big health insurance companies that are getting in the way. They delay and deny care when prescribed by our doctors. It's a time to make insurance companies actually provide the reason they promise when we pay them every month. Another reason to expand Medicaid in Tennessee.
All right, last question in this section. Mary, you'll be first on this one. It's a hot topic for Tennessee. So the legislature just expanded the school voucher program while withholding public data on who's actually receiving them. Where do you stand on further voucher expansion, and will you commit to pushing for transparency on how that money is spent?
So I do not support further expansions of the voucher program. Every dollar that leaves a public school is a dollar that it doesn't get back. Our public schools are already stretched thin, but whatever your view on vouchers, I think there's something that everybody has to agree on. If public money is being spent, the public has the right to see how. Just like he said, the legislature, I'm just not able to talk this evening, has expanded this program while actively withholding data on who's receiving the funds, how they're being used, and that's not transparency, that's a blank check. I commit on record to pushing for legislation that requires public reporting on voucher recipients, the outcomes, and the spending. They deserve to know where their tax money goes.
Marlayna.
So I want to eliminate the voucher scam completely. So of course I oppose expanding vouchers. And yes, I will absolutely push for transparency on where our money is going. Public money should fund public schools. It's that simple. And when we drain resources from public education, the schools that suffer most are in districts like ours, the diverse, growing, underfunded that are relative to their need. The lack of public data on who is receiving vouchers is not an accident. It is a feature by design that should concern every taxpayer in Tennessee, regardless of their party. If this program is working so well and working as advertised, show us the data. If they won't show us the data, then that tells you everything that you need to know.
All right, thank you very much for that. So we're going to move into the next topic. I kind of put these together. I hope they make sense together, but safety and infrastructure are going to be is the topic here. Marlayna, you'll go first on this first question. Tennessee has debated safe storage laws and red flag laws in the wake of school shootings, but neither has passed. Where do you stand on those measures, and what else would you do to keep residents safe?
So I support both, and I think that most Tennesseans would if you explain what they actually do. So safe storage laws save kids' lives. They don't prevent responsible gun ownership. They prevent accidents and youth suicide. Red flag laws create a legal process with due process to temporarily remove firearms from someone in crisis. That's not confiscation. That is just common sense. After the Covenant shooting, the legislature had every opportunity to act, and they chose not to. I won't wait. I believe in the Second Amendment. I also believe in the right of kids to go to school without being shot. Those beliefs should not be in conflict, and they are not.
Wow.
Mary?
So every day, nearly 130 people in the U.S. are killed with guns, and more than 200 are shot and wounded. The effects of gun violence in America extend far beyond these casualties. I do support safe storage requirements and a red flag law. I don't think that's in conflict with responsible gun ownership. Most gun owners I know already store their firearms safely and would have no issue with a law that keeps guns out of the hands of kids and people in crisis. A third of youth suicides and unintentional deaths could be prevented by securing guns. I also connect this to mental health funding because safety isn't just about storage laws, it's about getting help before a crisis happens. After watching what's happening in our schools, I think it's a failure of leadership.
Very good. Next question, Mary, you'll go first. How should the Tennessee legislature support Rutherford County in its infrastructure needs, such as better roads, traffic control, and affordable housing?
Well, anyone who's tried to get down across Jefferson Pike or down 231 or any other road in this county during rush hour knows exactly what I'm talking about. This county is one of the fastest growing in the state, and our roads, traffic systems, and the housing has not kept pace. I'd push legislation to direct infrastructure funding based on actual growth, not the outdated formula that's in place today. That causes Rutherford County to get shortchanged because they're looking at formulas from years ago and not current supporting the 400,000 residents we have today. I also support new housing incentives for workforce and starter home development so working families aren't priced out of the community they grew up in or they work in. I got into this race because of the exact kind of disconnect. Growth is happening to us instead of growth being planned by us. That has to change.
So Rutherford County is one of the fastest growing counties in Tennessee and one of the most underfunded relative to their growth. State transportation dollars need to follow population growth, not just political clout. District 37 is absorbing thousands of new residents and the infrastructure has not caught up. The more and more that those gaps grow, the harder and harder it will become to fix. Affordable housing requires state level action. Things that we can do are zoning reform, housing trust fund investment, and incentives for developers to build at price points that working families can actually afford. We can't keep telling people to move here and then not building the roads, the schools, and the housing that they need to be here.
Thank you. Okay. Marlayna, this question will go to you first. What state-level programs or policies would you push for to better support domestic violence victims here in Rutherford County?
So domestic violence does not get the attention that it deserves at the state level, and the survivors are the ones who are paying for that. I would push to fund local shelters and legal aid organizers. They are chronically under-resourced, and they are doing the work anyways. I would push for strong enforcement of protective orders and firearm surrender requirements. Existing law is good, but it's only as good as it is enforced. I would address economic barriers. There are many survivors who stay because they cannot afford to leave or they have nowhere to go. Housing assistance and job training programs designed specifically for survivors matter, and I think it's the bare minimum that we could do. Safety isn't just the absence of violence, it is having a safe place to go, food for you to eat, and the comfort of knowing that there's infrastructure that lets you do so.
So I think this area is where the state has real direct power to help, and I don't think we're using it enough. I do support state-funded shelters, an increase in victim advocates here in Rutherford County. I'd also push for faster judicial processing of protective orders because delays in that system can be the difference between safety and tragedy. I also want to see stronger coordination between the courts and law enforcement because today that protective order is just a piece of paper. Victims deserve a system that moves as urgently as their situation does. There is a new law that was passed in the previous legislation and just signed by Governor Lee. It's called Savannah's Law. It was created as a new domestic violence offender registry. It's designed to create public awareness and address repeat domestic offender by making that information public without jeopardizing the victim's privacy.
Very good. All right. We have one more section of questions here. And these were just miscellaneous random thoughts that occurred to me somehow. First question will go to you, Mary. 2/3 of Tennesseans surveyed recently said they want more guardrails on AI and data centers. Where do you stand on AI regulation at the state level?
So I think it says something important that 2/3 of Tennesseans across party lines do want more guardrails. This isn't partisan, it's common sense. I support a moratorium on all new AI and data centers until there's real oversight at the state and local level. There needs to be tangible understanding of how these centers operate and what impact they have on community around them. Those facilities use enormous amounts of water and electricity, and they generate constant noise. Just look at what's going on right now around the zoo. They're being pushed, and they barely have had a say before it was approved. I push for stronger oversight on the utility and zoning impact at the state level, as well as consumer protections around how AI technology and make sure that how it uses people's personal data. This isn't about being anti-technology. It's about making sure new industries pay their fair share and don't quietly offload their costs onto local communities, causing additional community burdens.
Marlayna?
So 2/3 of Tennesseans want guardrails on AI, as we've heard, and the legislature is largely ignoring that. Tennessee has actually been ahead on some AI issues compared to other states. The Elvis Act protecting musicians' likeness is an example of the state acting on a real harm. We do need more of that. Data center development should come with transparency requirements: who owns the data, what protections exist, and what are the energy and water impacts on local communities. I'm not anti-technology, however, I'm pro-accountability. We should not let corporations be the ones making the rules on this. My biggest concern with AI is that we ensure there are protections for people, jobs, and the environment first before anyone speaks of advancement or people start talking about profits. We need to make sure we do not let unnecessary gaps grow.
Okay. Next question will go to Marlayna first. Several recent state laws have shifted decisions away from local school boards and county governments towards the legislature. Do you support that trend, and how would you protect local control?
No, I do not support that trend. I think that it should alarm anyone who cares about local democracy, regardless of their party. The legislature has overridden local decisions on everything from school curricula to housing policy. That's not leadership, that's just simply control. Rutherford County communities know their needs better than Nashville knows. Local school boards, city councils, and county governments should have the room to govern. If you believe in limited government, preempting local decisions from the state capitol is the opposite of that, and I would push back.
Yeah, I agree. I don't support this trend at all, and I'll be a strong voice against it. Rutherford County and our local municipalities know their own growth challenges, their own schools, and their own communities better than anyone in a committee room at the Tennessee House of Representatives or in the Senate. When the legislature strips decision-making power away from local boards and county governments, it's not because the local leaders are failing. It's because the state wants to override the decision that it doesn't like, such as the landfill, AI data centers. I commit to defending the authority of our local boards, county governments on decisions that affect us most directly: zoning, growth management, and how schools are run. Strong communities need local leadership that's actually allowed to lead.
All right, next question, we'll go to Mary first. What is one issue facing District 37 that you do not think is getting enough attention from either party right now?
So this may, depart from the norm, but I think the biggest hidden crisis in Rutherford County is deferred building maintenance. You're like, what in the world? Schools are underfunded and have not been able to keep up with facility repairs. They haven't been able to replace HVAC systems, roofs, plumbing, and the commission is struggling to fund these items without raising property taxes. There's also the jail overcrowding. Did you know the detention center is so overcrowded, we've been issued a warning that a new jail must be built. It's going to cost millions of dollars. And as always, the Middle Point landfill, that's another hot point for me. I do support the Tennessee Waste to Jobs Act, that Tennessee taxpayers, our own local government, businesses, and future generations benefit from a smarter approach to managing waste. There's a collision between unmanaged growth and our basic infrastructure: childcare, housing, roads, water, sewer, and landfill capacity all at once. Everybody talks about growth like it's automatically good news, but nobody's asking whether our infrastructure can support the people moving here, whether the people who already live here can still afford to stay here. And I've watched it play out firsthand with the fights over the warehouse development, the city annexations, and the Middle Point landfill expansion. Both parties tend to treat it as either an unqualified win or someone else's problem. And I think it deserves real, honest planning. And that's the kind of disruption that this district needs.
Marlayna?
So I tried my best to narrow this down to just one, but I actually have two. They go hand in hand: housing instability and adult mental health. And I'd argue that you can't talk about one without the other. Rutherford County has seen rapid rent increases, and tenants here have almost no legal protections. No just cause eviction requirement, no rent stabilization, and legal aid is nearly impossible to access when you're working two jobs. What we don't talk about enough is what housing instability does to people's mental health, and then what untreated mental health does to housing stability. It's a constant feedback loop. People in crisis lose jobs, people who lose housing go into crisis, and adults in Rutherford County have almost nowhere to turn outside of an emergency room. Schools get attention on mental health as they should, but we have a whole population of young adults falling between the ages of 18 and 24 that are being left to fall through every crack at once, and neither party is building the infrastructure to catch them. I've seen this up close as an organizer, and I have experienced this firsthand myself. Not once, but twice. These are not separate issues. They're the same person at the same kitchen table trying to hold it all together. We need policy that treats it that way.
So that takes care of the questions from me. Did anyone fill out a index card and want to do a question? Or you can read it out loud if you like.
Oh, we got one. Real fast.
right, good. Hey, look, there's plenty here to keep you busy right now. Let's see. We'll go to Marlayna first with this question. This is for both. What do you consider the most important thing to work toward during your term in office?
There are so many choices. Infrastructure in general, between housing stability, between fighting the grocery store, all of that. If we can get the infrastructure, not just roads, infrastructure as a whole, childcare is infrastructure, getting affordability to a place that people can afford to live on one income is infrastructure, having that domestic violence infrastructure to make sure we're funding the shelters and such. That's what I would focus on.
Same question for Mary.
I think the biggest issue facing our district and state of Tennessee is maternal mortality right now. We need to expand Medicaid to get those resources back to our counties that are losing out, where hospitals have closed, there's no care, they're driving for hours, and we're losing women and children 3 times the rate of the country. And I think that goes with all infrastructure as well. Part of that.
Mary, we'll go with this one to you first. Another one about growth. There's a very common theme around here, right? Rutherford County is growing so fast, the state does not allow the county to charge impact fees to builders. What would you do to help our county receive more money from builders for schools, water, electric, roads, etc.?
So it's not called an impact fee, but there is a percentage that they do get charged. However, they usually pass it on to the buyer. But we do need to be able to increase that and the state has a responsibility to be able to do that for the counties. We have to have more buildings. We have to have more schools. 400,000 are expected to be here by the end of the year. That, and one out of every 5 is a child under 18, so they'll need a school. And I think the state needs to take ownership and increase that percentage for the impact fees.
Could you restate the question?
Sure. Rutherford County is growing fast. The state does not allow the county to charge impact fees to builders. What would you do to help our county receive more money from builders for schools, water, electric, roads, etc.?
Well, I think that there needs to be something between the people who are coming here to build businesses and an agreement between the locality on jobs, because jobs generate income and income generates the economy. That's all.
Okay. We'll go to the next one. An interesting one. I think this did get talked about a little bit in one of your answers. The Rutherford County Jail will need to be upgraded or completely replaced at a cost of millions of taxpayer dollars. What would you do as a representative to stop the state of Tennessee from housing state inmates in our county jail? Ooh, that's a big one. Marlayna, take this first.
Can you say it again?
Yep. Rutherford County Jail needs to be upgraded or completely replaced at a cost of millions of taxpayer dollars. What would you do as a representative to stop the state of Tennessee from housing state inmates in our county jail?
I feel like that is a bit of an overreach to push them state in. So you're saying state, let me get this clearly. So people who are being housed currently in state jails should come to the county jail?
For context, the Rutherford County Jail has been overcrowded for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably at least 100 to 200 inmates in that jail who are convicted and should be in state prisons. They just haven't come and taken them out yet. So they're very far behind.
Okay, well, that's where it needs to start then. We need to take them out. We need to take those who should be in state prisons into the state prisons. I don't know how we would do that, but perhaps we would see whose record and see whose crime was committed here that actually falls within the county and then get them moved out. Rutherford County doesn't deserve to offset the burden of something that the state is falling behind on.
In addition to that, I think some of our laws are not worthy of jail time. I think if we legalized hemp, marijuana, then our overcrowding would be less. Did you know that July 1st, all hemp will be out of the state? They're going to close the shops, the vape shops, we have too many in Rutherford County. But I think some of our overcrowding could be lessened by reducing these to misdemeanor and not need to be state drug charges. However, state needs to own up and move their inmates to their state prisons. And we need to set deadlines and have somebody on top of that.
Good. Yeah, that's a good question. Whoever wrote that one. I know some other things I've seen, like it costs us a lot more per day than what the state pays us
It does.
for those inmates. Next question, we'll go to Mary first on this one. Since the fall of Roe, it is impossible for women to get an abortion. Young families are afraid to have children in case something goes wrong. Do you support a woman's right to choose an abortion? Are there any limits that you would put on having an abortion? Will you fight in the legislature for this?
So I do support a woman's choice. That's something that I would not ever back down on. I think it's a woman's body. It's our choice. And what happens to her body is between her, her doctor, and her God, or not. There are no limitations because at any time during a pregnancy, a child you can miscarry. So I don't think there are limitations on that at all. I'm a Planned Parenthood supporter. I always have been. It's not my decision for what you do, and I support that fully.
Can you repeat it? I just don't want to miss any
Yep.
part.
Since the fall of Roe, it is impossible for women to get an abortion. Young families are afraid to have children in case something goes wrong.
Mhm.
Do you support a woman's right to choose an abortion? Are there any limits that you would put on having an abortion? Will you fight in the legislature for this?
So yes, I would fight for us to restore access to abortion tooth and nail. I am one of the young mothers that would love to have more children, that is afraid to, because my son needs his mother more than he needs a sibling. And it shouldn't be terrifying of an experience to be pregnant. It should be a magical experience for those who welcome that experience, and for those who don't want to have it, should not be forced to have it. There's no exception whatsoever that anyone should be forced to carry a child to term, in my personal opinion. It doesn't matter if it's medical, if you simply can't afford it. Your choice is your choice. It's your body. It's your life. It's between you and your doctor, nobody else.
This next question will go to Marlayna first.
Okay.
Our current representative, Charlie Baum, has over $260,000 in his campaign war chest. What do you think, if anything, should be done to rein in or limit fundraising donations for long-term incumbents?
I don't think that you should be able to raise funds while you're in office. I think you should only be able to raise when you're actively campaigning, and Charlie has continued to raise funds over and over. So that's why he's sitting on so much money.
I don't think that corporations should be allowed to donate. I don't think PACs there should be no APAC. I think that's wrong. I agree. You should not be allowed to fundraise while you are actively in Congress, in the state legislature. And I'm a grassroots campaign. I won't take corporation money. I won't take PAC money. I think we just need to be knocking on doors and asking for donations. So I don't support PACs.
There's quite a few questions on this one. I'll do a couple of these. We'll go first. Mary, we'll go first with you. What does Medicare for all mean to you?
We kind of had this conversation over driving in the car on our way over here. Medicare for all, for me, means that my taxpayer dollars are funding care, health care, mental, dental, vision for all. I pay in taxes, and I expect that people who also pay in taxes have access to health care at little to no cost.
Marlayna?
To me, it means accepting the expansion money of $22 billion that we've left sitting on the table for years. Because there's nobody in this country that deserves to go without medical care at all. We're supposed to be the greatest country in the world, and people can't afford their own insulin, or they're choosing between. There was a kid, I believe it was out in California, who had to choose between his rent and his inhaler, and instead he died. So Medicare for all means eliminating obstacles in situations like that for me.
This is an interesting one. Marlayna, we'll come to you first. What is your position on expanding access to home and community-based services for seniors and individuals with disabilities, and how would you ensure adequate funding?
Well, I'd have to check and see, but I feel as though we could supply that with the Medicaid expansion as well. Seniors are a demographic that oftentimes get overlooked or left out of the conversation, just as the demographic of young adults between 18 and 24. They tend to forget about us when we start off in adulthood and when we are in our golden years. And that's not something that we should be doing to our Tennesseans.
Will you repeat the question? I want to make sure I got it all.
What is your position on expanding access to home and community-based services for seniors and individuals with disabilities, and how would you ensure adequate funding?
So this was actually just in the news recently, that the federal government wants to do away with this law that was signed 50 plus years ago. I don't remember the exact year. But I believe that a senior or disabled person has the right to live in their home, to have care in their home, and Medicare for all would allow that expansion. There are also programs where those in-home family members can also get paid by the state to help provide those services to keep people out of nursing homes. It sounds like to me they want to go back to being everyone being institutionalized or just left homeless. And I disagree with that. I would do everything within my power to keep that funded.
Yeah. Could I have an interruption on that? As a caregiver of a disabled adult daughter, I provide in-home care. The state will not pay me because I live with her. If I lived next door to her and into her apartment and cared for her, the state would pay me.
That needs to change.
Yeah,
That needs to
definitely
change
needs to change.
immediately. People should not have to, first off, we already know that rent is basically impossible to come by off of one income. So this is a triple whammy. We're not raising the minimum wage. Then you have something like this where they're wanting you to pay 2 rents just to be able to take care of your daughter who needs you day in and day out. When do they expect you to ever leave her to herself? That makes no sense at all. And that's something I would definitely actively fight to change. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. That's absolutely ridiculous to not be able to have to live separately. when someone needs 100% around the clock care.
Thank you, Sherry.
Good conversation.
Thanks for that.
Did you have another question over here?
Well, I wanted to kind of piggyback on that because that was going to be my question too. ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, was passed in 1990. The Olmstead Act, I think it was in 99, which said you can live at home, stay in place as you age and as your disability increases, with supports from the government, and which again goes back to we've got to increase Medicaid in this state, because the feds came out this week with a memorandum saying we're going to ignore that. You know, all the courts have said you have to follow Olmstead, but we're not going to do that anymore. So if you're a person who lives with a disability or you're elderly and need some help, you're going to be put in an institution because it's illegal to live on the streets now. And so we're not going to provide any of the services. This is what came out in the memorandum. And as I said, she acknowledges in the memorandum that what they're doing is illegal, that none of the courts will support it if they're going to do it anyway. And so I think it's very important for someone going to the state legislature to say, we have got to expand Medicaid. What would you do specifically to get them to take the expanded Medicaid? And make them follow the law.
See, the problem here in Tennessee is that we have a supermajority. So that is our first hurdle. And we know typically this supermajority historically does not listen to the data. The only thing that I could suppose is that we do grassroots organizing and are up there every day as much as possible to get them to listen. Aside from that, we got to get people elected into office so we can break the supermajority. We have 5 state house representative seats here in Rutherford County alone. That is halfway to what we need to break the supermajority. Not to flip it, but to break it. We need 10 seats to break the supermajority. And once we do that, we will have a lot more ball in our court to work with.
Exactly. We have to fight. We have to organize just like we did against warehouses. We have to rise up. We have to make our voices heard. And we need everybody across the state to do that. We did get one, while we had the supermajority, they did override Bill Lee's foregoance for next year for school lunch funding during the summertime. So we do have, there are some people starting to click and say, and to stop some of the craziness that he is doing. So people are beginning to rise up and listen. So I think we need to continue to do that. And we need your help.
Very good. The next one I'm going to do my best with. It's written in cursive. I am of that age. I might not be able to read this, but I'm going to do my best.
Okay,
It's okay.
Here, man, I'm old, I can read it.
So this is about Jackson Law and Middle Point landfill. We'll go to Mary first here. The legislature recently discussed how to handle the landfill issue, including options around recycling and disposal of trash. What role does Jackson Law play, and what solutions do you think we can create?
So can I use notes?
Sure.
So I actually went to the Solid Waste Task Board Advisory Meeting and listened and learned a lot. So what is the Jackson Law? It's a 1980s law based on the rapid growth in commercial landfill development. It's actually named after Doug Jackson out of Dixon County, and it became law in 1989. The purpose is to provide local governments that did not have zoning ordinances the authority to review and approve from a land use perspective proposals for landfill and other solid waste facilities that were submitted to the Department of Tennessee. Today, it takes about 5 to 10 years for a new company to get approved to even begin accepting waste. I think that's why they're pushing the Middle Point landfill expansion so big. However, in Rutherford County, the reason the city took over landfill is because they have, the city approved the amendment of the Jackson Law. Rutherford County Commission has not. So the state could have taken over Middle Point landfill. The city came in, took it over, they amended and accepted Jackson Law, which is why we have been able to fight so hard as we've been able to. There is a Tennessee Waste to Jobs Act that could allow the landfill to continue further on beyond its years because it would reduce waste by recycling. I'm a huge recycler, have been, aluminum, glass, paper. We go through more recycling than we do waste. And I'm a big proponent of recycling. So I think that's something that Rutherford County needs to also amend and vote on is the Jackson Law Amendment, and then continue to push for the Tennessee Waste Jobs Act.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Let's see if I can read it again. The legislature recently discussed how to handle the landfill issue, including options around recycling and disposal of trash. What role does the Jackson Law play, and what solutions do you think we can create?
Well, the Jackson Law gives a locality of where a landfill is the voice to speak out against it. That's the layman's term and plain way of putting it. I believe that we could either enforce or encourage more recycling, and that would keep things out of the landfill. And I also think that we should not accept the expansion. I believe it's a 72-foot or something like that, expansion, that vertical expansion that they're trying to make. And I don't think that we need that here. It's way too close to our waterways that we have, and it's contaminating what we drink, what we cook with, what we bathe with. So that's what I would do. I would push for more recycling and other renewable ways to contain that.
I want to throw one more question in here
Okay.
before we move on to the closing statements. You both mentioned earlier that one of the steps is that we have to break the supermajority at the Tennessee State Legislature. However, in Tennessee, we regularly rank, I'm going to use an acronym, DFL, and it's dead last, okay, in voting. What sort of ideas do you have on engaging and creating better voter turnout here in the state of Tennessee? We'll go to Marlayna first.
So as a lot of you know, I'm huge on civic engagement. I founded a women's group last October that has grown to 1,500 members, and it is all centered around civic engagement. I think that we need to have civic education that is actually a requirement in an entire class or course in order to graduate high school. And then I also believe that we should be doing within our local parties civic outreach and civic engagement courses for adults who would like to touch base with that. There's a lot of ways that people can get involved with civic engagement that makes it fun and makes it actually something people want to know about. And I think one of the biggest things is letting people know exactly how much power they have at every level. It's kind of confusing for a lot of people. You know, we have our city, county, state, and federal, and most people, they know about the federal because it makes it on the news. It's the big stuff, it's the fancy stuff. But the things that touch your life more than anything else is your city, county, and state level government. So I propose that we as legislators and also as city council members and county commissions to do our own outreach and be hosting town halls and finding those who would like to be engaged and encouraging those who would not. We have a lot of campuses and colleges here across the state of Tennessee. We could do a lot with the young people. And I will say that the kids are all right from what I've been seeing. There are a lot of people at these college campuses, a lot of students who are actively civically engaged and eager to learn more. And I do think that that's something we need to capitalize on. People are fed up We have seen what not paying attention gets us, and I think right now a lot of people are eyes wide open and ears open as well, and we need to make sure that we are having those conversations.
Mary?
So voting is a right, and I agree. We need to get civics back in schools. It was something when I was in school we had to take. But they're trying to take away women and minority votes today. He's really trying to take away our midterm vote and just do away with it altogether. Also, you have to be careful because they've outlawed large voter registration parties in the state of Tennessee. So if you have something that is just voter registration, they will not accept those voter cards. State of Tennessee, we have made it easier to register to vote. When you turn 16 and you get your driver's license, you can check a box and you are automatically registered. However, teens are not getting their driver's license at 16 anymore. My kids didn't want to get their driver's license because they didn't want to have to go do errands for me. So that's very important. Our children's friends, we found out that they're in their 20s and they've never voted. It's just getting the word out to understand that this is a right. This is something that is in our Constitution, and it is something that can be taken away if we don't continue to vote.
All right, thank you very much for that.
Sherry's in the back.
You have a question?
Kind of question, a comment, a correction. So, yes, they can go and get a driver's license or a state ID, whatever, and they will ask you the questions and partially fill out your registration form. They mail it to you. You still need to complete it and send it to the election commission. Most people don't realize that. So, when you go and you say, yeah, I'm registered at the DMV, you're not registered to vote until you complete the process. And a lot of times change. Yeah. And I know because I had to do that with my daughter. And I was like, oh, okay.
All right, thank you for
Good
that. So that'll conclude our questions and answers. Thank you very much for those candidates. We have,
Real fast question.
okay, make it fast.
I've been very impressed with both of you tonight. I've been involved in politics for a year or two. Will tonight both of you pledge to support whoever wins the primary to the fullest of your ability,
Oh,
so that
absolutely.
we can turn this state around and quit backing back into the caves?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very good. That sounded like an affirmative.
Yes, yes. We've had that from the beginning.
Yes, we have.
Excellent. All right, so we are going to move on to our closing statements. Each candidate gets 3 minutes, and we will start with Mary.
Okay. Thank you all for being here tonight. I want to leave you with something simple. I didn't get into this race because of a poll or because someone recruited me. I got into this because a warehouse was coming to my neighborhood and our community fought it and we won. These fights taught me that when a community organizes and refuses to back down, you can actually beat City Hall. And that's what put me on this path. This August, Democrats in this district have a choice to make. And I'd ask you not to think just about who shares your values, because I believe we both share very, very, very similar values up here tonight, but who's actually about to prepare to win in November. I spent nearly 30 years building a career in fintech, leading teams, managing budgets, and delivering results for 100,000 customers at a time. I know how to build a coalition, manage a crisis, and get something done when people across the table don't agree with me. That's how I've spent my entire career. It's not just a talking point. It's the exact skill set this seat demands against an opponent in November who already has the advantage of incumbency and has the local establishment behind him. I want to leave you with this quote from Michelle Obama's speech Thursday at the opening of the Obama Presidential Library. We simply don't have the luxury or time to be cynical or complacent, to wring our hands in despair, or to wait for someone else to fix the problem. Y'all, hope is all we have. Because hope is the essential spark that lights the fire of change. But hope is a choice. Whether or not we use our voices to speak up is a choice. Voting is a choice. Being a decent human is a choice. Believing that we still hold the power to build a country that reflects all of us is a choice. On August 6th, you do have a choice. So here's my ask. Look at each of us and the experience we bring to this moment. Look what it will actually take to flip the seat and hold it. And on August 6th, vote for the leadership that can go to the distance. And then in November, and let's win this district. Again, my name is Maryann Young, and I'd be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Marlayna?
So tonight you got to see something that doesn't happen enough in politics, in my opinion. Two women who love their community, who agree on the big things, making their case to you honestly. But I would like to tell you why I'd like to ask for your vote in August. I got to listen to you all tonight, and what I heard confirmed exactly why I'm running. The people in this room are asking the right question. You're not asking for polished talking points. You're asking for someone who will actually show up. That's what I'm asking you to do when you trust me with your vote. I've organized in this community for years without a campaign behind me. I've fought for those who had nowhere to turn, for families who fell through every crack at once, or the people the system simply wasn't built for. That didn't start when I filed my petition to run. It's just who I am. The seat we're talking about has been held by the other party for 8 years, and in that time, the problems that we've talked about tonight have only gotten worse, not better. The gaps have grown larger, not smaller. We need to change that, and we need to change that now. I'm ready to be the person who goes to Nashville to fight on behalf of District 37. Whoever wins this primary, we need someone in that seat who shows up like they have something to lose. Because I do. I believe we all do. My family lives here, my community is here, and I'm not going to Nashville just to have a title. I'm going for a fight. So if you're ready for it, let's build something better together.
Thank you very much to both of you for being here tonight. It was great hearing from you all. I want to thank First Cumberland Presbyterian Church for allowing us to use this space tonight. And just a reminder, early voting for the August election starts July 17th until August 1st, and election day is August 6th, so you can vote for either Marlayna or Maryann Young. And also, really important that you vote for your county commission, your city council, and county school board elections. The general election is on August 6th as well, same dates. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here tonight, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.